Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest-running show on startups and entrepreneurship. We are 17. You are, of course, watching our Budget Wishlist special. I'm Shereen Bhan. The run-up to the Interim Budget 2019 is also the season of wish lists. While the angel tax has caused an existential threat of sorts for startups and angel investments in the country, and it's dominated most of the conversations, both investors and startups are hoping that Interim Finance Minister Piyush Goyal puts this issue to rest on the 1st of February. Will he do that or not is the big question. Many also anticipate that the government will boost its flagship schemes like Startup India and Make in India, but sectors like health tech, agri-tech and fintech may also be at the forefront of budgetary attention. To get clarity on what startups and investors really want, joining me on the program, founder of the GSF Accelerator, Rajesh Sahwney, joins me here in Delhi. Rehan, managing partner at Aureus Venture, representing IVCA, or the Indian Private Equity and Venture Capital Association, joins us from Mumbai, and from Bangalore, Rahul Garg, founder and CEO of Moglix, a B2B industrial goods online marketplace, and Ramasubramaniam B, co-founder of BlackBuck, an online marketplace to book a truck for intercity B2B freight. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Let me get started with angel tax, because that, of course, is the most contentious issue. The hope is that perhaps Interim Finance Minister Piyush Goyal will take up this issue and maybe axe the tax. That is the big hope, but will he deliver on that is the question. On the 4th of February, the DIPP has called another meeting between startups as well as the CBDT and itself to try and untangle some of the pending issues that the Jan 16th circular issued by the DIPP has not been able to address. Rajesh Sahwney, let me start by asking you, angel tax, the single biggest issue, do you hope that it will be axed this time around, or is that too much of an ask?
Absolutely. I think government can and must abolish the angel tax. Not only angel tax, they must also quash all the notices that have been sent to startups for recovery of angel tax. It's just not acceptable. And on one hand, we have such a bright future in Startup India. On the other hand, one wing of the government is persecuting young startups and investors alike.
Okay, so abolish the angel tax and quash all the income tax notices that have been sent out already. That's the wish list there from Rajesh Sahwney. Rehan, let me come to you. How much of an issue does this continue to be? The government believes that they have been able to address most of the outstanding issues substantially through that Jan 16 circular that was issued, and more is likely to come in the second installment as and when the DIPP meets with startups on the 4th of February. But what would your expectation be from the budget?
Shereen, the issue has been that DIPP has kept rebottling this angel tax, and it hasn't improved. So even if you look at the Jan 16 circular, there are a number of issues with it. One is all the people who have received notices so far, there's no relief to them, right? That's the largest issue. The number two issue is that the way it's worded is that it doesn't look like much relief is possible going forward.
Okay.
Because all it seems to do is shift the registration process to DIPP from the finance, from CBDT.
Right.
Right. And there are a number of other conditions, like friends and family have to have a certain net worth. Even that 10 crore rupee exemption has a lot of ifs and buts with it.
Yeah.
Conditions attached. Then there are issues like, for example, if an angel invests in a later round, right, beyond that 10 crore. I mean, let's take an example of Sachin Bansal having put in whatever he was supposed to have put in, right, $50 million, $100 million into Ola. Now, that can also be construed as angel money, because he's not a fund, he's an individual, right? So even later round investors, if they are not funds, are subject to angel tax.
Okay.
Right. So the whole thinking is flawed. That if a fund invests, it's fine. But if you invest at the same price, then it's not fine, right?
Okay.
So they haven't really addressed it. They've kind of repackaged it, and we were all euphoric when it first came out. But then the next day when we read it carefully, we realized that hey, this is not really going to get us very far.
Yeah.
So what we at IVCA have done is we have made a set of recommendations. We have said ideal case scenario, you go and you scrap 56. Right? Now, let's say you're unwilling to do that for whatever fears that you have.
Yeah.
We have given two additional recommendations on top. One is that we have said that up to 10 crores must be absolutely exempt.
Okay.
No questions of what is your net worth and those kind of things.
Okay.
Because, I mean, are we trying to catch big frauds? Are we trying to catch small frauds, right?
Right.
Even if you're trying to catch a fraud. So let 10 crores go. Let it be like, duty-free imports which come in your baggage.
Okay.
So that is one recommendation we have made. The second recommendation we have made is that if you are co-investing along with a fund, right, and the fund has set a certain price, then that price is a good price.
Okay.
So you should not be questioned thus coming in. See, the whole fear is that price correct and is some hanky-panky happening as a result of that. But, if a SEBI-regulated fund has come in and has set a price and said, okay, this is 100 crores, 1,000 crores, whatever crores, and you also participate as an angel, then you should be fine. Right?
Okay.
So these are the two things we've asked for if you're not willing to scrap 56.
Which looks like a tall ask at this point in time. I don't know whether the government is considering the possibility of scrapping 56. If it happens, it's going to be a big boost for the startup ecosystem, and it will bury the ghost of this controversial angel tax once and for all. But as we've been pointing out, there have been several circulars. As Rehan and both Rajesh mentioned, it's really been repackaging, rebottling old wine in new bottle. So let's see whether the government actually bites the bullet and scraps 56 or takes forward some of the IVCA recommendations as mentioned by Rehan Khan. Let me go across to Rahul Garg now. Rahul, forget the angel tax for a moment because it's already dominated a lot of mind share and mind space. Outside of that, for the benefit of the startup ecosystem, and let's be clear, the budget can only provide very little support. What needs to be done is outside of the budget as well to provide a much more conducive environment, to deal with filing of patents where we lag far behind China, regulatory issues outside of tax. So what else would you like to see, not necessarily linked only to the budget?
Okay, so firstly, I think last 3 to 5 years has been very interesting because if you look at it from the few index which moves the country primarily, so first is ease of doing business, second is introduction of GST, third is the entire move towards digitization and make in India.
Yeah.
If I look at all of these three changes that have happened over the last few years have fundamentally triggered the entire B2B ecosystem, whether it is in terms of distribution, whether it is in terms of supply chain, whether it is in terms of financing, to be reimagined and thought through with the lens of one country, one tax.
Right.
And that, I think, is a fantastic momentum that has been generated.
Right.
Now, there are a few things that we need to keep in mind. I mean, why startups is important. I mean, if I look at few of the stats, now, startup as an industry, we can look at over the next 10 years, we could be generating anywhere north of 50 million plus jobs and impacting directly or indirectly the lives of 500 million plus people.
Yes.
Right? That is the sheer amount of impact startups can create and with the innovation they are bringing in. There are two things essential for startup ecosystem to flourish. One is access to capital.
Yeah.
And today the access to capital in India is still fairly small and can grow by 10x.
Right.
And that is from angels, VCs, and let's not forget debt access from the banks.
Yeah.
Because that is also an instrument which needs to be available to the startups. So we need to continue to have the policy framework as well as tax framework which enables more capital to come into the startups for themselves. And the second aspect is how do we introduce capital efficiency for startups to operate in. And we have done some of the changes that have happened around the tax from the income tax assumption at a company level that have been introduced. But I would also go to the extent that there are opportunities for us to think about how does the cost structure of a startup can be optimized further, whether it is in terms of people working in startups getting opportunities or incentives to work in these startups and having lower income tax liabilities around
That's an interesting one. I would love to see that fly. I'm not sure whether that is going to gain any traction. I think the one thing that the startups and other companies in general have been pushing may not find favor in this budget, but certainly is something worth looking at is removing the taxation on ESOPs, and I think that's been a long-standing demand demand as well. So I don't know whether it'll get addressed in this budget or not, but certainly something to look out for. But, Ram, let me pick up on the points that Rahul mentioned there, both in terms of access to capital as well as capital efficiency. And if we look at access to capital, there was with much fanfare the 10,000 crore rupee fund of funds for startups was launched by the government. Not too much we have seen happen on that account. I know Rajesh has been recommending that there be a $100 million fund to basically enable accelerators to get on with doing the job. What is it that you would like to see on both these fronts, access to capital as well as capital efficiency?
Yeah, I think there are lots of innovative ideas out there, and access to capital has been a challenge. Foreign capital has become very important for the startups to flourish, whereas there is quite a bit of capital that could be made available within the country itself. So government stepping up and accelerating the initiatives in this area, it's going to be very, very important. And definitely just coming up with a certain framework around these aspects would also make startups more responsible around the efficiency related aspects in terms of how prudent they are towards capital deployment and so on. Yeah, so lots of areas to be still intervened by the government, and transformation is required in this area, Shereen.
Since we're talking about sunrise sectors and what we are seeing, a pain point that you've been trying to address through BlackBuck, specifically to be able to give a shot in the arm to the logistics industry, to more organized players in this sort of space, what more would you like to see and what more would you expect?
Sure. While there could be many areas regarding budgetary allocations and so on, specifically it is also time for us to talk about multiple policy frameworks, and especially in the road transportation area, there are still quite a number of interventions required from the government side. While the government has been pushing the agenda on, say, dedicated freight corridor or any other projects, one important aspect that has been pending for quite some time in road transportation is a policy around standardizing the commercial vehicles. Today, India has multiple different types of vehicles, and these things lead to a heavy loss on the productivity side, and government should immediately look into this aspect and really come up with a policy around standardizing the vehicles. And also moving towards larger capacity vehicles as a country, it is really important for us. Western countries have really followed this and they have reaped in the benefits, and it is important for India to actually move towards larger capacity, standard larger capacity vehicles. That's one area. The other area, though the implementation has been done in the area of, let's say, check post removal and so on in the country, it is still not very effective. Still stoppages do exist at various state borders, and government has to, come up with a clear policy to immediately eliminate all these things so that the seamless movements could be ensured across the country. So there are multiple areas like this. On the digital initiative side, e-way bill has been a welcome change, but a major flaw as per our view is not closing the e-way bill. Even today, we actually hear a lot about misuse of e-way bills. So it is important for the government to come up with the systems to close the e-way bills so that it can be taken as an important documentary proof for payments and even working capital financing, which the industry needs to a great extent. And also just expanding the e-tolling network, not just with national highways, but also moving towards state highways. It will actually move the larger adoption. Currently, the adoption is very poor in e-tolling. And one major reason is also not, the state highways not being covered.